My name's Michael Blakey. For the last 17 years, I've been an angel investor, investing in pre-revenue and early stage revenue companies, first in the UK, and then 4 years ago I moved to Singapore. One of the things that technology has actually achieved is actually making the world a smaller place, much more interconnected. So now if you have a success, you know it's a global business, it's a global opportunity. You look at somebody like Facebook has over 1 billion users. The ability to do that has only come around recently. It is not something that somebody 100 years ago could ever say, I'm going to launch a product and it's going to be used on a daily basis or on a monthly basis by 1 billion people. For me, that's very much where the world has changed. And also, I think it's opened it up to younger people. You know, in the olden days, if you wanted to do a startup, you had to have, experience, you had to know the right people. So on the whole, you were looking at somebody when they did a startup, 30-year-old plus. It's only recently that you can suddenly be like an 18-year-old, go out and raise, a few $100 million and build a multi-billion global business. Even when I started investing in technology startups 17, 18 years ago, even then to do a startup, you needed to raise 2-3 million just to do the basics, because you need to buy the servers, you need the tech, you need all of this infrastructure in place. Now you can raise $50,000 and you can actually have a product out there in the real world with real users. You can now do films on your camera or on your phone. So the world has changed drastically, and because of these changes, it allows much younger people to actually go out there and experiment and actually try. When I was kind of going through, when I first started in the work in the real world, I remember people saying, you can't fail, don't fail. That kind of especially being English, we're very conservative, And so we always looked at like the glass half empty, whilst I think in the Americans it was always that glass was half full, which is why they had that kind of entrepreneur, their willingness to try, because they always thought it would get better. They always looked at the upside. And I think many other cultures look at kind of, okay, what happens if it goes wrong? So when I started investing, if an entrepreneur came and they had like a failed business, it was literally impossible for them to, and this is, so I'm focusing on like in London, it's very difficult for them to go out and raise funding. You kind of go forward 17 years now. Actually, a lot of investors, when they see a founder who's had a failed business, they actually think of it as like, oh, somebody else has paid for their MBA. They actually see it as a kind of positive thing, as long as they've learned from it. So what people say is, what did you learn from what did you learn from your failure, and how are you taking those learnings and putting them into your new business? Because again, you can't really teach entrepreneurism. So it's not something, you've just got to have that kind of innate, I want to try something different, I want to take the risk. I don't want kind of stability. I understand that setting up a business, it is kind of very intense, and you've got to be able to deal with failure, as well as deal with success. And there's the emotions all in between. So I think that's kind of where the big change that I've seen just in my 17 years of doing this is that failure isn't seen as the death knell of your entrepreneurial experience. It's actually seen as a starting point, a learning, an education. So, and if you look at a lot of the founders that we've got out there, a lot of the entrepreneurs, they've all had multiple failures, and they've bounced back, they've learned from them, and they've adapted and changed the way they do things, but they don't see it as a negative. So for me, it's something that I think has changed massively. I think entrepreneurs are becoming younger. I think there's always certain industries where you need to be older and you need to have experience. And there's other industries where you can be any age. You can be a 12-year-old in code. So you normally see kind of more B2C type of products coming out of the younger generation, because it's what they know. You can't really kind of ask a 12-year-old, okay, build a blockchain company for the fintech industry. That's something that you need to have experience and have a level of knowledge of. But if you're building a new kind of game, an app, or something along those lines, you can be any age, and sometimes it's actually better to be young because you actually understand what it is. And if you look at bloggers and people, or the YouTube celebrities and everything, they're all the younger generation because they've grown up with it, and they're the ones that can connect with the audiences that are using them.